the word Salah, in Arabic we have constructions. In every language we have constructions. We have idafa constructions, we have mawsuf sifa constructions, adjectives. But this particular construction in the Arabic language, the prayer of one of you, it's an idafa construction. When the mudaf is singular, the construction, the point that I'm really coming to you without getting into much detail is that it's general, it's am. And the Prophet said, the prayer of one of you. And when I say it's general or am, what I'm alluding to is the fact that it refers to all prayers and not some prayers. In other words, the Prophet is not saying that your fard salah won't be accepted if you don't have wudu. He's saying no salah will be accepted if you don't have wudu. So without wudu, no prayer can be valid, right? And in terms of your compulsory prayers, in terms of your nafil salah, there's agreement, there's consensus among ulama that the salah is not accepted without wudu. And then there were those who even quoted an ijma, a consensus to include the salatul janazah. That if a person does not have wudu for salatul janazah, the salatul janazah is also invalid. However, that is not a matter of consensus, even though the vast majority of ulama held the view that salatul janazah is invalid without wudu. There was a minority of scholars that said that the salatul janazah without wudu will be valid. Now, that was Ibn Jarir al-Tabari. Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari held the view that salatul janazah without wudu is valid. Now, however, Imam Nawawi rahimahullah, when he responded to this, he said, هذا مذهب باطل. He said, this is a baseless madhab. Now, but irrespective of what Imam Nawawi might have said, Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari and al-Imam al-Sha'bi, they held the view that salatul janazah can be performed without wudu, which is interesting. Now, then there's another discussion. My Sujud al-Tilawa, Sajdat al-Tilawa, or Sajdat al-Shukr, does that require wudu, yes or no? First of all, what does the Shafi madhab say? Does it require wudu, yes or no? We treat it as a salah. Right? We treat it as a salah. The Prophet also many a times referred to salah using the word sujud. He said, when one of you enter the masjid, he should not sit. إِذَا دَخَلَ أَحَدُكُمُ الْمَسْجِدَ فَلَا يَجْلِسْ. Then the Prophet didn't say, until he performs 2 rak'at of salah. He said, حَتَّى يَسْجُدْ سَجْدَتَيْن, until he performs 2 sajdas. So he called salah sajda. Right? And therefore, when we use the term sajda, we say it comprises the meanings of salah. And therefore, when you're making sajda, you must have wudu as well. That's in the Shafi madhab. Now, however, Imam Nawawi quoted another ijma that like you must have wudu for salatul janazah, and like you must have wudu for all other salah, he said there's also a consensus that you must have wudu for your sajdatul tilawa and sajdatul ash-shukr. Right? But even though he quoted ijma, there are reports that suggest that that wasn't necessarily the view of all the ulama. Now, on the point of sajdatul shukr and sajdatul tilawa, when we say it's like a salah, when I perform sajda, of course in my salah, sajda has a certain form that we are familiar with. Outside of salah, if I'm reciting a verse of sajda, it is actually amazing. Said Habib Umar has a tafsir class every Monday night, which is really remarkable. He has it in the house, the courtyard of Dar Mustafa, and you have like a few thousand students attending that tafsir dars of Habib Umar every week. That dars of Habib, his tafsir class started in homes. He moves to meeting students' homes. And he moved from one home to another home to another home every week. And then the tafsir dars became too big for homes, and they moved it to, I don't know if it was in a masjid temporarily, but eventually it was held in the souk. in the marketplace, which is amazing. Almost like what would be the equivalent of the parking lot of the marketplace of the souk. And every Monday they would come and set up sound and throw out carpets, and he would conduct his class over there. And then for the past, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years, he moved it to the house of Darul Mustafa. Right? But the point I was coming to, Umar came across a verse of Sajda in his tafsir class. And when he concluded the tafsir of that ayah, he read the ayah one last time, and then he got off his chair and he made the sajda. And everyone in the gathering also made sajda. It was interesting to see because I haven't seen somebody in a class coming across a verse of sajda and then stopping the dars and making sajda. No. But so the sajda is so much, we consider to be a salat to the extent that when I make sajda, I must make takbiratul ihram to enter into a state of prayer, then I make my sajda. So when I make sajda to tilawa, I come across a verse of sajda. Give me a verse of sajda. Kalla la tuti'uhu wasjud waqtarib. I want to make my sajda, I must face qibla. I must say Allahu Akbar. And then I must say Allahu Akbar for a second time to make my sajda. And then I must say Allahu Akbar to come out of my sajda. And then as recommended that I say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah at least once. Saying taslim at the end of a sajda is not a requirement, but it's preferred. But I must make Allahu Akbar takbir of ihram before I make my sajda. Allahu Akbar, of course, while facing Qibla. Then Allahu Akbar, I go into my sajda. Allahu Akbar out of my sajda. And Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. That's how much sajda to shukr and sajda to tilawa resemble salah. And therefore Imam Nawawi said there is a consensus that you must have wudu for sajda al-Tilawa and sajda to al-Shukr. However, Ibn Abi Shayba in his Musannaf, with a chain of transmission that has one person that is unknown, which means it's not authentic. But nonetheless, the narration goes to Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, that he would dismount his animal that he was riding, and then he would relieve himself, and then he wouldn't perform wudu, and he would get back onto his animal, and while riding, when he came across a verse of sajda, he would make the sajda, which gives off a meaning that he made sajda without being in a state of tahara. However, the hadith is not authentic. And even if it was authentic, all it would establish is that it is a practice of a Sahabi. And the practice of a Sahabi is not a hujjah. It's not a source of law. The practice of a Sahabi is not a source of law. Then there's another discussion that comes about. Another discussion that comes up is that when we say that tahara, being in a state of purity, is a condition of salah, what do we mean by condition? Is it a condition for salah to become compulsory, or is it a condition for me to go ahead and make salah that's going to be valid? In other words, is it a condition for me to go ahead and make a salah that's going to be valid? Or is it a condition for salah to be compulsory upon me in the first place? You understand the difference? What would the difference be? The difference is that if it's a condition for salah to be wajib, it would mean that if it's no way for me to perform wudu or tayammum, then salah is not wajib. That's what it means. But if it's a condition for me to go ahead and perform salah, then it means irrespective if there's no water and no sand, there's nothing for me to cleanse myself with. It means that salah will still be wajib upon me. Whether I should perform the salah or not perform the salah, or how I should perform it, That's a discussion, but salah is wajib on me. So that's the difference between whether it's a shart of hujub or a shart of ada. No. Shart al-ada is cleanliness, being in a state of tahara. Is it a condition for me to go ahead and perform the salah? Right? So, in order for me to make salah, I must fulfill the shart. But the salah is obligatory upon me either way. That's shartul ada. Shartul hujub is, if there's no way for me to perform wudu or tayammum, then the salah doesn't become compulsory upon me in the first place. You understand the difference now? Shartul hujub and shartul ada. Now, of course, in the Shafi'i school, our madhab is that it's not a shart of hujub, it's a shart of ada. For us, what makes salah compulsory is when the waqt enters. When a white line appears on the horizon, salah becomes wajib. Full stop. When zawal al-shams takes place, salah becomes wajib. When the shadow of an object reaches its like plus the say shade of zenith, asr becomes wajib. When the sun sets, maghrib becomes wajib. And when the red glow in the sky disappears, isha becomes wajib. Whether there's water, whether there's no water, whether there's sand, whether there's no sand, whether I can make wudu, whether I cannot make wudu, salah becomes wajib immediately. If I adopt the view that cleanliness, tahara, is a condition for salah to become wajib, then it means a person that does not have access to water or sand, salah is not wajib on him. Right?
The majnun person
Hey?
The majnun person, if they, salah becomes wajib for them also when the waqt comes in. Is it?
Salah becomes wajib, no. So it becomes wajib on every person who is mukallaf. It becomes wajib on a mukallaf. A majnoon person is not mukallaf. Mukallaf is, when I say a white line appears on the horizon, immediately salah becomes wajib, what I mean thereby is it becomes wajib on a mukallaf person. And a mukallaf is Muslim, aqil, baligh. Right? Non-Muslims are not mukallaf. Aqil, you must be sane, meaning an insane person or a mad person is not mukallaf. Allah's law doesn't apply to him. Baligh, you must have reached the age of puberty. If you are a sabi, you have not yet reached the age of puberty, then Allah's law doesn't apply to you. So, the reason why this discussion comes up, because there were some Maliki ulama, some ulama within the Maliki madhab that actually held this view. They say that the Prophet when he said, Inna Allah la yaqbal salat ahadikum, Allah does not accept the prayer of one of you, إذا أحدث, when he's in a state of impurity, حتى يتوضأ, until he performs wudu. They say that shart that the Prophet mentioned there is not a shart for you to go ahead and pray. It's a shart for salah to become wajib. And if there is no way for you to make tahara, then the salah doesn't become wajib. Right? Which is like a very strange goal. And so they say, because in our fiqh we speak about a person who is a faqid al-tahurain. Someone finds himself in a position or an area or a space, there's no water and there's no dust. So he cannot make wudu and he cannot make tayammum. So in our fiqh we discuss, what is this person supposed to do? Let's assume he's on a ship. There's no dust, soil, there's no dust from soil. He's on a ship, on water. And there's no water. Okay, a ship not having water sounds a bit funny. He's on an aeroplane. And there's no water. And there's no soil. Faqid al-tahurin. What should he do? Some scholars in the Maliki madhab, they say salah doesn't become wajib upon him. No. However, other Maliki scholars like Ibn Abdul Barr, he rejected this view completely. There was one Maliki scholar that said that this is the view of the Maliki madhab, that salah doesn't become wajib. And Ibn Abdul Barr, he He said, Ma a'arif, I don't know. Kayfa aqdam, how he could have adopted the view stating that this is the correct view in the Maliki madhab, knowing that this view goes against the majority of the Ummah of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Jumhur al-Salaf, wa amat al-Fuqaha, wa jama'at al-Malikiyin, wa huwa qawlun da'ifun, this is a weak view, mahjurun, that should be, to make hajr or something means you should abandon, it should be abandoned, shadhun, marghubun an. So he spoke out seriously against the view, and I'm sharing it just to show you that this view exists in the Maliki school. Now, Al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, he expressed 4 different opinions what a person should do when he doesn't have access to water or dust. The faqid al-tahurain. The first and the rajih in the Shafi'i school is that a person who finds himself in the state because of the sacredness of the waqt, in our madhab, there is never a time when you cannot pray. Even if you don't have water, even if you don't have dust coming from soil, even if you're sick, even no matter what, you must make salah because of the sacredness of the waqt. So you see, the person doesn't have water or soil, faqidu tahurain, on account of the sacredness of the waqt, he must pray salah as is. Right? And then afterwards, when he finds water or he finds soil, he must repeat the salah. That's the rajih in the Shafi'i madhab. I'm on a plane, there's no water, there's no soil, and the waqt is going to leave, I must make the salah without wudu because of the sacredness of the waqt. And once the plane lands, or at a later stage, when I find water or soil, then I must make i'adah, I must repeat the salah. That's the official view. However, there are other views as well. One view says that it's haram for you to make salah, and you must wait until you find water or soil to perform wudu and tayammum, and then you make salah. And this is actually a very interesting view because there's a masala that is discussed, and that is a person that doesn't have wudu, can he make salah, yes or no? A person that doesn't have wudu, can he make salah, yes or no? All the ulama agree that it's haram for somebody to make salah if he doesn't have wudu, because that's tala'ub bid-deen. He's playing with deen. And to make salah, to make wudu and then you make salah. Otherwise, what are you doing? And it's a very interesting mas'ala because sometimes you're making salah, and while making salah, you realize that I don't have wudu. Then you maybe feel too shy to want to break off the salah and leave and go make wudu and come back, because you may think what people are going to think. Or maybe you're the imam and you feel like you don't want to confuse everybody by, you're really 1 raka'at in, I don't want to confuse anybody, let me rather just continue with it. In the Shafi'i madhab, if your imam doesn't have wudu, is your salah valid? Salah is valid. Every person's salah is looked independent. If I know the imam doesn't have wudu and I'm following him in salah, my salah is not valid. But if I don't know whether he has wudu or not, and it ends up after the salah telling us he never had wudu, my salah is valid. Now, so the imam, he doesn't have wudu, he realizes, and he doesn't want to cause a scene, so he just continues praying. Haram. It's haram to make salah if you know you don't have wudu. Other examples would be, you come into the masjid and people is looking at you, do you make your tahiyyatul masjid or not? But you don't have wudu. So not just because people are looking at you, make tahiyyatul masjid without wudu. Haram. Can't do it. To make salat out to do is haram. And therefore, the second view is not a very far-fetched view. The second view says a person that doesn't have access to water or soil, they say it's haram for him to make salah. And when he eventually finds water or soil, then he must make qada. However, that's not the official. The official view is because of the sacredness of the waqt and your excuse for not finding water or soil, you must make salah as is, without wudu. And then when you eventually find, and then you reperform your wudu. Among other details that I'm going to skip regarding this masala now. Then there's another discussion that comes up from the hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said that لا يقبل الله صلاة أحدكم. Allah does not accept the prayer of one of you when he's in a state of impurity until he performs wudu. Imam al-Khattabi, under the study of the fiqh of hadith, when you're studying fiqh from hadith, then Imam al-Khattabi is one of the great names that you would often find the scholars quoting. And he was Afghanistani, like myself. His origin was Afghanistani. Ma'alim al-Sunan. He authored a book called Ma'alim al-Sunan. And he said that this hadith indicates or establishes that you must have wudu in performing tawaf. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, "At-tawafu bil-bayti salatun." Making tawaf around the Kaaba is salah. And if tawaf around the Kaaba is salah, then it means that you must have wudu in performing tawaf. And if you don't have wudu, Allah won't accept your tawaf. No. Then there was a scholar, Shaykh Fathuddin al-Ya'muri, that responded to Khattabi and said that how does this hadith establish that? The fact that the Prophet ﷺ said that tawaf is salah, it doesn't mean that tawaf carries all the rulings of salah. Like you can speak in tawaf, but you can't speak in salah. I can have a discussion with someone while I'm making tawaf, but I can't have a discussion. So tawaf is not like salah in every way. So how can you deduct from this hadith that you must have wudu for tawaf? So we said no. When the Prophet ﷺ says that tawaf is a salah, at-tawaf bil-bayti salatun, then we must understand it to be exactly the same like salah. Haqiqatan. All the ahkam that applies to salah must apply to tawaf. And that's how the scholars look at it. Except those areas where the Prophet ﷺ exempted. And the completion of the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that performing tawaf around the Kaaba is salah, the Prophet made an exception. He said, إِلَّا أَنَّ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى أَحَلَّ فِيهِ الْكَلَامِ. Except for the fact that Allah has made talking during tawaf halal, but He has made it haram while in salah. Right? So tawaf is salah, and therefore all the ahkam that apply to salah must apply to tawaf. If my awra is exposed while making tawaf, my tawaf is invalid. Like my awra, if my awra is exposed while making salah, my salah is invalid. No. إلا أن الله حل فيه الكلام. No. What also indicates to the fact that you require wudu for tawaf is the Prophet ﷺ, he told his wife, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, the mother of the believers, that when she was in a state of hayd, a state of menstruation, which is a state of impurity, he said that do whatever the Hajj does. You go to Arafah, go to Muzdalifah, pelt the Jamarat, do whatever the Hajj does, غير ألا تطوفي, but you cannot make tawaf. Why can't you make tawaf? Because you're in a state of impurity. So that further establishes that you must be in a state of impurity when performing tawaf. The Prophet ﷺ said, Allah does not accept the prayer of one of you when he enters into a state of impurity. He said, ahdath. What does it mean to enter into a state of impurity? Or what does hadath mean? So we know that hadath is divided into two. Hadath akbar and hadath asghar. Minor impurity and major impurity. As for major impurity, the way you come out of major impurity is by performing ghusl. And the way you come out of a minor impurity is by performing wudu. But what is meant by the word hadath? There's three possible meanings. The first meaning is that the actual thing that breaks your wudu, that is called hadath. So if I release flatulence, then the flatulence is hadath. Or stool is hadath, or urine is hadath. That's one meaning. Another meaning is hadath refers not to the actual flatulence or stool or urine, but the act of that coming out of your body is called hadath. Another meaning of hadath is and this is how the fuqaha look at hadath. The third meaning is when you release stool or flatulence or urine, things that break the wudu, when that happens, then you enter into a state that prevents you from making salah. Al-man'u al-mutarattib ala dhalika al-khuruj. When that comes, when you release flatulence or urine or stool, something comes out of the two privates, then you enter into a state. And that state that you enter is called hadath. And that state prevents you from making salah. And then another meaning, and I often explain hadath with this meaning, is that it's a wasfun hukmi. And what that refers to is, and our fuqaha discuss this, they say that when you enter into a state of hadath, minor hadath, then on the body parts of wudu, a abstract, unseen impurity settles on that part of the body. So you can't see it, but it's there. Right? So if I enter into a state of minor hadath, then on my arms there's an impurity that settles on my arm. There's an impurity that settles over my face. There's an abstract impurity that comes into my other arm and my feet. And when I perform wudu, I wash those impurities away. In a state of major hadath, there's an abstract impurity that covers my entire body, and I remove that impurity by performing ghusl. Right? So hadath sometimes refers to the actual stool and urine. Sometimes it refers to the exiting of the stool and urine. Sometimes it refers to the state that you enter that prevents you from making salah. Hadath could refer to that. And hadath could also refer to an abstract impurity that settles on your body. They all really come down to the same thing. However, as for the abstract impurity settling on your body, Hafiz Iraqi said there's no real dalil to say that there's an abstract impurity that settles on your body. And the strongest proof to suggest that there is an abstract impurity that settles on your body when you enter into a state of hadath is the fact that once you use the water to remove it, they say the water is used and can no longer be ma'al musta'mal, it can no longer be used, as if the water becomes impure. And for the water to become impure, when I say impure here, does it mean that it's najis? Right? But it cannot be reused. Right? The madhaib agree that once I've used water to perform wudu, that water cannot be reused for wudu again. Right? So he says the closest thing to establish that you've removed an abstract impurity from your body is the fact that the water becomes used. And Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala is proved to say that the water cannot be reused for wudu again was, he said, in the Arabian Peninsula, despite the scarcity of water, right? When the Sahaba performed wudu, they used to let the water run away and they wouldn't save the water. With an understanding that the water has become, there's an impurity that transfers over to the water. Beyond that, the Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith that a person that performs wudu, it washes away his sins. Right? Al-Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah ta'ala, was one of the great salihin and awliya. One of the karamat of Abu Hanifa was that if you performed wudu next to him, he could see what sins is coming, being washed off your body. Right? You could see. Can you imagine? You wash your face, your eyes, and you can see what sin you've done with your eyes. What sin you did with your mouth when you rinsed out your mouth. Subhanallah. That all, so you say the closest dalil to say that there is an abstract impurity that settles on your body is the fact that when you washed your limbs, the water shouldn't be reused again. Imam Shafi said that they would let that water flow away even though there was scarcity of water. That was in general. However, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on many occasions, his water used to be saved with which he performed wudu. Because there was no impurity when it came to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nothing about him was impure. Nothing. And in the Shama'il of Imam at-Tirmidhi, a lady, she brought her nephew to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he was ill. I forget the Sahabi's name. He said, I was a young man and I took ill kana bi waja', and my aunt took me to the home of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is so interesting. It shows you how a female Sahabi actually could approach Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and come to his home with her nephew that was ill. And then he said, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam placed his hand on my head and made dua for me. And thus he narrated the hadith. He said he became an old man, 90 years old, and all his hair was grey. But the area where the Prophet placed his hand remained black. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he said the Prophet prayed for me and he called for water and he made wudu. And the water with which he performed wudu was saved in a bucket. And the Prophet gave me from that water and said, drink this. And he said, I drank it and I got shifa. Subhanallah. So all of these discussions, they don't apply to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, however, you say that what lends support to the idea that there's an impurity that transfers from your body over to the water once you use it in ghusl and wudu is the fact that that impurity does not get removed when you perform tayammum. This is like an interesting hadith. The first time I read this hadith is a hadith of Amr ibn al-As. Amr ibn al-As was a senior Sahabi. His son Abdullah ibn Umar was a younger Sahabi, but Amr was a senior Sahabi. And he said that this is not something that most people can appreciate. You know who can appreciate this type of hadith? Maybe people that does camping, or our brothers that go out in Jamaat and they sleep in the masjid. And sometimes you find yourself in difficult places. So he said Amr ibn al-As, he said, we were out on an expedition. It's almost like a Jamaat now. في غزاة ذات سلاسل, and he had an ihtilam. Everyone knows an ihtilam? Hey? A nocturnal dream. All dreams are nocturnal. Right? Every dream at night is nocturnal. Unless you suffered a knock. Right? A wet dream now. Subhanallah. So, you see, they had a wet dream. So, of course, the challenge in that situation is you must take ghusl. And many times you come to some masjid, you come to some areas, there's no home water. And if it's a nice summer morning like this, and it's not a big problem, but he said it was fi laylatin barida. It was a very cold day, morning. So he said, I feared that had I taken a ghusl with that cold water, I would have been destroyed. I would have taken ill and passed away. Or I would have taken ill. He just said, ahlak. So instead of performing ghusl, I made tayammum. And then I made salah with the Sahaba who I was with. And afterwards, they told that to Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Prophet called him and the Prophet said, Ya Amr, صليت بأصحابك وأنت جنب. You made salah with your companions and you're in a state of janaba. So the point here is that what he's referring to is that even though he performed tayammum, the Prophet said he's still junub, meaning that impurity was still on his body. And therefore, tayammum doesn't remove the impurity. They say tayammum is a mubihun li salah. It makes it permissible for you to make salah, but it doesn't actually remove the impurity. Which establishes what? That wudu and ghusl removes an impurity. And therefore the water is musta'mal. And now he said, Ya Amr, you prayed with your companions and you're in a state of janaba, you're junub. So I told the Prophet ﷺ that I did not perform a ghusl because it was very cold, and I feared I'm going to take ill and I may die. And Allah said in the Quran, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Do not kill yourselves. إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِكُمْ رَحِيمًا. And then he said, the Prophet ﷺ laughed and said nothing to be wrong. Subhanallah. It's interesting because he gave his reasoning and his dalil to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam just laughed sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But that is fiqh. If you're going to present your body, harm to your body, you're going to take ill, then Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "La darar wa la dirar." Islam is a religion where you do not harm yourself and you don't harm others. You don't harm yourself and you don't harm others. How did we come to this now? Hadath. The Prophet said, Allah does not accept the prayer of any of you if he enters into a state of hadath until he performs wudu. Now,
There was the name of the Sahabi who had a wound and he was told to take wudu for Salah at infant, and that led to his passing.
no, there is a narration of that kind. I must refresh my memory. I'll get back to you, inshallah. So these are some of the meanings of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And indeed, Allah does not accept the prayer of one of you when he enters into a state of hadath until he performs wudu. لا يقبل الله صلاة أحدكم إذا أحدث حتى يتوضأ. No. Subhanallah. I think that's enough meaning from this hadith for this morning. Is it already time for Ishraq? One moment. No. The hadith also establishes that a person only is required to perform wudu if he enters into a state of hadath. And as long as a person did not enter into a state of hadath, there's no need for him to perform another wudu. So with my wudu of fajr, if I don't enter into a state of hadath, I can pray dhuhr with the same wudu, and asr, and maghrib. And what the Prophet ﷺ is saying that Allah does not accept the prayer of one of you when he enters into a state of hadath until he performs wudu. But if I have wudu and I did not enter a state of hadath, then I can perform as many salahs as I wish with that wudu. Now, because Rasul ﷺ said, and Allah will not accept the prayer of one of you when he enters the state of hadath until he performs wudu. Meaning that once he performs wudu, as long as he has wudu, Allah will accept whatever salah he performs. And our Salaf al-Salih, many of them were known for praying many salahs with one wudu. In fact, many of them were known for praying Salatul Fajr with the wudu of Isha. Many of them were known for praying Salatul Fajr with the wudu of Isha. And from them was al-Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah tabaraka wa ta'ala. When he visited his student, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and they had an amazing relationship. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal was a student of Imam al-Shafi'i, but they were also, in a certain way, colleagues, because Imam Ahmad was a great scholar. And when Imam Shafi'i came to spend the night at his home, he was very excited, and he got his family excited about the fact that Imam Shafi'i was coming to his home. So they prepared food, and Imam Shafi'i then spent the night, and the next morning when he left, his daughter said that you spoke so highly of this Imam that came to our home, but there's three things that I observed that I found problematic. So he said, Bismillah, what was it? He said, first of all, he ate a lot. The Prophet said, a third for food, a third for water, and a third for air. That is currently my latest diet is like, after searching and trying so many different diets, the ultimate diet is my 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 first shart is you must stay away from sugar as far as possible, not entirely, but as far as possible. But just eat less. And that's the prophetic diet. If you can really just eat 1/3 of your stomach. Professor Hussein used to say 1/3, whatever food you eat shouldn't be more than a handful if it's all put together. Anyway, she said, you ate a lot. My first problem is you ate a lot. The second problem is that he wasn't up for tahajjud. I didn't observe him standing up for tahajjud. And the third problem was that when he woke up, I prepared water for him to make wudu with, but he went and made fajr and never made wudu. So Imam Ahmad said, "Khair, don't worry, I'll ask Imam Shafi about it." We met Imam Shafi, so he asked him, you honored our home, etc., etc. However, my daughter had these concerns. So Imam Shafi said, as for the amount of food that I ate, I knew that the food coming from you is halal, so I enjoyed it. And as for me not standing up for tahajjud, he said, when I went to go lay down after our meal, some masail came into my mind, and I was thinking about it. Now, Imam Shafi, rahimahullah ta'ala, there were times when he received masail and he was struggling to find answers for it, and he would recite a full khatam of the Quran looking for an answer for the masala. So he said, I was laying down and I was thinking to the answers of these questions that people asked me. And my mind was occupied with these questions such that I never realized that the time of tahajjud went by. And when I stood up for fajr, I was awake all night thinking about these questions that there was no need for me to perform wudu. No. Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim, rahimahullah, no, Tirmidhi, Imam Tirmidhi and Bukhari once met one night after Isha at the masjid. So it's another situation. Imam Tirmidhi is like a student of Imam Bukhari, but they're more colleagues than what they are students. And they pray Isha together, and they pray the Sunnah and they witr, and then they meet. Salam, how are you? And how are you? And they start having a discussion on Hadith, narrators and Hadith, and they become so engrossed in this discussion that they are having that without realization, while the discussion continues, they heard the mu'adhin calling adhan for Fajr. So they prayed Fajr with the wudu of Isha. Subhanallah. We had some experiences like that with Mulna Taha in Cairo, rahimahullah ta'ala. Mulna Taha used to have like ajib himma to read, to study, to discuss things. But he was also he was like a night person. He used to stay awake at night a lot. And so I remember we bought Dr. Salahuddin al-Idlabi had a book titled Aqaid al-Asha'ira. And we purchased the book and we started reading after Isha, and we read the book all night until Fajr. And that was extensive commentary. And I probably dozed off a few times, but when I taught the whole book in one night until Fajr. And like energetic. And the nights thereafter, everyone tried to fall asleep before Mulna comes to them. Ajib. Ajib himma. Ya Rabb. Allah grant us tawfiq. So those are some of the meanings of a hadith. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, Allah does not accept the prayer of one of you when he enters into a state of impurity until he performs wudu. And the discussion with one hadith took us right up until the time of Ishraq. The sun is already out, I can see the sun is out. I saw the rays coming in earlier. Allah make us from the people of knowledge and from the students of hadith. بهذه النوايا بما نوى سلام صالح وما سلح الأمر، وإلى حضرة النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. الفاتحة. بسم الله. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون، وسلام على المرسلين، والحمد لله.